Hi, I didn't see you there. It's Aston with MotoTune, mobile repair service for all kinds of scooters on Colorado's Front Range. Today I am working on a Schwinn Chinese scooter. You can look up what Schwinn became over the years. They've slapped their, not even they've slapped their, that's not the correct way to put it, but the Schwinn brand name has ended up on all kinds of inferior quality machines, including the Chinese scooter that I'm going to work on today. This is going to be the third stator that I put in this thing. We're going to see if this stator works. The first two stators did not work. So this is a common problem with Chinese scooters, which is that the replacement parts that you order that are brand new, they don't fucking work. This has become a bigger problem in like the last year or two, I'd say. It's really fucking annoying when my job is to fix Chinese scooters. It's becoming harder and harder to fix them, to the point where it's virtually impossible. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try and slap a third stator in this bike today. We're gonna see how that goes. So follow along with me. We're gonna just, let's see, you know, who the fuck knows how this is gonna go. Anyway, I appreciate all of you who watch these videos. Really means a lot to me. It's the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. 2026. I have no big plans to change who I am or what I'm doing or to develop any better habits or anything like that. It's just another new year of my life. So maybe I'm just getting fucking old. I don't know. Anyway, follow along with me while I replace the stator. You know, every one of these videos is kind of like an experiment. Today I'm experimenting with shooting in 4K 60 frames HD. I've been shooting in 1080p 30 frames a second just because I don't know if my computer will handle 4K 60 frames a second, but so far so good. It seems to be handling the higher frame rate, higher resolution video fairly well in this whole editing process. So the first part to getting the stator off, that's what this video is actually about. It's not one of those videos about making videos. This is a video about removing the stator from a GY6 type scooter. So the first thing that you have to do is get the bodywork out of the way of the stator cover, of the plastic cooling shroud that functions as the very exterior stator cover, if you will. It's not really the stator cover, it's the plastic shroud housing, but there's some bodywork in the way on this bike, so we have to remove this white plastic panel. And then once that white plastic panel is off, there's a black plastic panel that kind of folds down. You don't have to remove the black plastic panel all the way. You can just fold it down out of the way. And then there's 4 fasteners that hold the plastic cooling shroud onto the engine. There's 2 that go into the upper shroud. This is the lower shroud that we are removing. And then there's 2 more bolts that go into the engine case. As soon as you have all of those fasteners removed, the cooling shroud, lower cooling shroud, or stator cover will go ahead and fall right off of the bike. Once the stator cover has been removed, aka the lower cooling shroud, you'll have a fan that you have to deal with. The fan is that white part that's bolted to the flywheel. The flywheel is the gold stainless steel magnet that is underneath this fan. So I'm just using a 1/4 inch drive, 8mm socket and ratchet to remove these 4 fasteners. They're M6 fasteners that go into the flywheel. They're what holds the fan onto the engine. I would caution you to be extremely careful and do not spin your engine backwards. It is a 4-stroke engine, and if you spin it backwards, meaning counterclockwise when you're sitting on the right side of it, if you spin it backwards, you run the risk of having it jump timing on the cam chain. That's hard to explain without showing you a blown up version of a 4-stroke engine. Just take my word for it and do not spin the thing counterclockwise. It only spins clockwise the direction that the engine moves when it is running. That is the only safe way to spin a 4-stroke engine when you're working on it. So just note that. That's a hot tip for you. So in order to actually remove this flywheel, you need a special flywheel puller tool. It looks like this. You can zoom in on it, have a good look at it. It threads into the flywheel. It threads in reverse, so lefty tighty, righty loosey, the opposite of what you're used to. And then you just spin a 17mm shank down onto the flywheel and it will pop it right off just like that. Then we remove our flywheel puller tool and we're done with that for now. Once you have the flywheel removed from the bike, it makes for a pretty good storage tray, pretty good magnetic storage tray for all the rest of the fasteners that you'll be removing in order to take the stator off. Here you can see I have the nut and the washer that hold the flywheel on. They're just stuck to the magnetic part of the flywheel. That's a good place to store them so that they don't go missing. Another huge thing to watch out for after you have the flywheel off is there's a woodruff key mounted into the crankshaft. Do not lose that woodruff key or else you will have to replace it before the bike goes back together. Ask me how I know, ask any mechanic who's done this how they know. It's because they've lost one at least once, so learn from our mistakes and don't let that be you. So after you have the flywheel removed, after the fan's removed, after the lower cooling shroud's removed, once you've fully exposed the stator, there is a sea of 8mm bolts holding the stator and the Hall effect pickup onto the engine cases. You'll want to remove all of those. They're little 8mm M6 fasteners. They're not torqued very tight at all. I think the torque spec on those is going to be somewhere between 6 and 10 foot-pounds, so you shouldn't need an impact or anything to remove them. They should be very easy to remove at that point. So there's two that hold the actual coil set of the stator onto the engine cases. Remove those, and then pop the two tiny little fasteners that hold the Hall effect pickup sensor onto the machine, and then remove whatever kind of keepers or little metal bracketry that holds the wires up against the engine side, the engine cases. There will be some bracketry that holds the wires in place, so make sure you remove that too. When I'm looking to buy parts for Chinese scooters, I just hit up eBay or Amazon and sort by lowest typically, and then I look at the pictures to make sure that, or try and be as sure as I can that the part that I'm buying is actually going to fit on the bike that I'm working on. However, with Chinese stuff, because all you can really do is look at pictures and match pictures up, it's a little bit harder than with Japanese OEM stuff where I can actually look up a part number and then order the part from the motorcycle dealership directly, and it's pretty much guaranteed to fit and guaranteed to work because Japanese quality control is amazing. The Chinese are not nearly as amazing as the Japanese are at building small parts, so it's not uncommon to get parts that do not work right out of the box, which totally sucks. So the stator that I just popped off of this bike, that was brand new. I'll show you a picture of it here in a second or two. It looks identical to the stator that I ended up installing today that actually worked. They came in different boxes, so the box that the malfunctioning or defective stators came in said Leaping Knight on it. I'd wager to guess that Leaping Knight is shipping garbage out of China, and you'll want to avoid that brand name as much as possible. The outfit that sold me the working stator, the stator that I'm installing right now that finally worked to make the bike charge its own freaking battery, that came from an outfit called Paul Eagle Auctions off of eBay. I'll show you their username and what their eBay page looks like. If you need Chinese scooters, I would highly recommend going through Paul Eagle Auctions on eBay. It's a great place to buy parts. As much as I'd love to put every supplier who's ever sold me junk parts on eBay on blast here on YouTube, there's literally too many of them to count. Like, I do not have time or the wherewithal or the rage in my heart to actually put any of these people on blast. But there are a lot of folks on eBay, a lot of folks on Amazon playing drop shipping games, playing games where they order parts for $2 a piece off of Alibaba, and then they mark them up to $20 and $30, and they're basically just playing a volume game involving how many returns they're going to get from people who actually have the time to return $20 parts. I'm generally not one of those people, so I'm just going to eat these broken stators, these defective stators, these brand new defective stators sold by this Leaping Knight company, whoever the hell they are, out of China. All I can say is that they suck, and yeah, that's about it. That's about it for defective parts anyway. I'm just bolting the new stator onto the bike. It's a pretty easy process. Installation is the reverse of disassembly. Reassembly is the reverse of disassembly. You just do everything in reverse that you just did to take the thing apart. There's nothing really to watch out for. Just make sure you don't cross-thread the screws going in. Make sure that they go in exactly the same way that they came out. Position the stator properly. It really only fits on in one way, but if you've never done this before, you might try and bolt it on backwards. It'll be pretty obvious when you go to fit the flywheel on and the wires are getting in the way that you have it on backwards. So just install it the proper way with the wires on the back, and make sure that you secure the wires against the engine cases using whatever bracketry was supplied to you from the factory. You had to remove that in order to get the stator off, so make sure you reinstall whatever bracketry holds the wiring in place when you reinstall the stator. Reinstalling the stator is a bit fiddly on account of the fact that all the fasteners are so tiny. The fasteners that hold the Hall effect pickup on are especially tiny, and they don't have anything to help you work them on there using tools, so your best bet is to just use your fingertips like I'm using right now. We're just getting the Hall effect pickup situated on the engine cases. This is what the Hall effect pickup actually looks like. That's two of them in the picture from two different stators. So that's the little part that I'm talking about that's fiddly to fit onto the engine, because the two fasteners are super tiny. They're 8 millimeters and then M6s, but again, they might even be M5s. I'm not 100% sure here, but they are the smallest screws under that cover. So just be careful with them. Don't drop them. Don't cross thread them. Spin them in as far in by hand as you can before you hit them with a tool. That's a good way of making sure that you won't cross thread the screws that you're installing. Moving right along, once the coils for the stator are bolted to the engine cases, once the Hall effect pickup is bolted to the engine cases, and once all of your bracketry that holds the wires in place is back on, it's time to refit the flywheel back onto the crankshaft. So go ahead and double check, make sure that your woodruff key is still there. If it's not still there, then locate it and replace it, put it back where it came from. And then it'll be time to slide the flywheel on once I do final torque on all these little stator parts up inside of here. Once I have all the stator parts bolted onto the engine cases, it's time to pop the flywheel back on. I like to get my line of sight right there in the middle of the flywheel, and then eyeball the woodruff key in the middle there and line it up with its little slot on the flywheel. And then the magnetic effect of the flywheel will just suck it right on to where it needs to be as long as you have it positioned properly. It's going to be extremely hard for me to tell you exactly how to fit this flywheel back on, but the little slot has to fit over the woodruff key, and then once that happens, it'll slide all the way into where it needs to go, and then you can go ahead and you can refit the nut that holds it on. And then the very last step, once everything is all the way back together, is to check the charging system. So I'm not going to show you that on video, but I will give you a very detailed description of how to do it here verbally. So your battery has what's called a resting voltage when the bike is not running. You'll want to check that resting voltage. You will want to make sure that your battery is fully charged up using a trickle charger before you check the resting voltage. You have to have a good battery in order to get a good reading off of the charging system. If there's any doubt in your mind as to the condition of your battery, go ahead and replace it, because they're only like $20 and you don't want to go chasing your tail over a $20 battery now, do you? So check that resting voltage, write it down. Now you start the bike, and then with the bike running, you check the running voltage. That running voltage is likely to be lower than the resting voltage. Last step, rev the bike. When you rev the bike, the voltage on the multimeter that you have hooked up to your battery should go over about 13.5 volts. If it doesn't even approach 13 volts, or if it doesn't go up, you have a problem with your charging system. The stator you installed is broken. The new stator that you just ordered doesn't work properly. Something is going wrong, and you have to figure out what and then replace the offending parts in order for your bike to work properly again. The last part of this video is just me starting the scooter for the customer and showing him that the charging system now works. We were both really happy that it finally works, especially after I went through 2 or 3 stators trying to make it work. So this was a huge win for us. I'd tried doing videos of this bike in the past, but it never worked out, and I don't like posting videos of things that don't work out properly. So you can see the bike running. Its little flywheel is spinning up inside of there. I'm going to go ahead and rev the engine here in a second or two, make sure that the charging voltage is higher than both the resting voltage and the running voltage, which it was, so we were totally home free, good to go. Hand the bike off to the customer, and hopefully he enjoys it, and it's just in time for the new year. So yeah, thanks a bunch for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this helped you. In the meantime, y'all have a really good one, and good luck working on your bikes.